for us, for Connie and for me, research is important because we still don't know fully what goes wrong in the developing brain. But more and more is being discovered.
Steve's passing was a tremendous loss for all of us. His impact on the lives of so many people has been extraordinary.
He really, sincerely cared. He cared about his daughter. He cared about my son. He cared about all of us who had those problems.
Steve was a marvelous guy. Connie and Steve both were tender, warm, supporting people.
Connie and Steve were an extraordinary team. They saw the potential of research to make a difference.
My mom and my dad were able to build on each other's strengths, each one having different things that they brought into the relationship that all of us benefited from.
Steve was a businessman, but more importantly, he was a father. And he cared deeply about a child of his who had psychiatric illness. And that's what brought him and Connie to BBRF, to support scientists with new ideas and new approaches to understand the brain and to develop new treatments to help people.
We had a daughter with psychiatric disability.
She had been diagnosed with schizophrenia in the late 1970s. And she hated the medications. She would say the medications that she took were almost worse than the disease. We were looking for answers. We wanted to know what caused the illness and what could be done to help her.
We've got to learn everything we can about it and help her to do everything she can to overcome it.
20% of the world suffers from psychiatric illness. The United States has 300 million people. That means 60 million people. What they did was they wanted an organization would be focused on this.
We heard a new organization was being formed, and the organization was NARSAD.
I realized very quickly that they were not talking about just doing something here. They were talking about doing something for the world.
Steve was a big thinker. He wanted to do as much as possible. And I think Connie mirrored that. They kept bringing in as much support as they could.
One of the key points that Steve and Connie saw was the need to support young investigators. It's very hard to begin a career in research. And our support for young investigators over the years has helped transform people's careers so they could then continue their work in brain research.
NARSAD and the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation and Connie and Steve Lieber were the enablers to help people like me, my colleagues, the entire community imagine a path forward.
It allowed us to do studies that no one in their right mind would fund. I mean, they funded me to follow up children who had been depressed, and we showed that depression in childhood and adolescence often predicts adult depression.
Their interest in helping the young investigators boiled down to almost a parental kind of interest, that when you were part of NARSAD, you were joining a family.
BBRF is a global foundation, and the fact that we're a family stems from Connie and Steve.
The reality is, she wouldn't have been able to do this on her own. He wouldn't have been able to do it on her own.
We met at Macy's liquor store. I got a temporary Christmas job with Macy's. She was the assistant to the director of marketing for the liquor store at that point. I was a guy who walked around with a white flower and told the salesman when to go to lunch. and I met her that way. The rest is history.
Through their long-standing commitment to BBRF, Connie and Steve have built an organization that has had a tremendous impact on the science, on the clinical options for people who have a psychiatric illness, and on the future of brain science as this work continues.
They have been on top of almost every development which had some meaning in mental health.
There's a profound feeling in the mental illness research scientific community that we have lost not just a benefactor, but we've lost inspiration.
You want to put it in as simple a manner as possible. I loved him. He was such a good force. He was such a good partner.
By honoring Steve, we're honoring a man who made all of this possible. BBRF would not exist today without Steve, along with Connie.
Thank God we had them with us for so many years.
They've laid the foundation for BBRF to continue and thrive moving forward.